thread the needle. Oh, what a block from James! Throws it back at Splitter, who is ready to dunk. Shot clock at 5 as Parker works left by Splitter in the middle. Goes to Duncan, and James blocks him at the rim. Oh, my goodness. What a block by James.
Hey everyone, welcome back to First Take, and as mentioned, I said this, our next guest is someone who has literally followed LeBron James since high school. You covered him when he was with the Cavs, now with the Heat. Brian Windhorst, our .com writer, and someone who knows all things LeBron. As we were going to commercial break, I want to let everyone know what happened. We were talking LeBlock, and Skip Bayless rated it, he gave it a 1.
On a scale, degree of difficulty.
Yes. He gave it a 1, and you chuckled. Was that not a 1?
Was that a breach of decorum that I was chuckling offset?
No, it's not a breach. No such thing.
Not on this show.
Not on this show. So, I mean, seriously, he says 1 in terms of degree of difficulty. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I'm going to have to disagree, and here's why. If you compile the highlight film of LeBron's great career plays tonight, right now, this would be on there. This block would be on there because it happened in the finals. Because it happened in this 33-5 run, which is a historic run. We're not going to see that
in the run.
Completely agree.
19 up, you know.
Completely agree. But historically, that's what we do. We put things in historical perspective. When we look back at this run, it'll be, remember that block LeBron put on. Of course. And I thought it was almost like, when you saw the replay, it was almost like an arm wrestling competition where, you know, and then he flips it right back over. It was
all ball.
And I agree. Listen,
Stephen A., he lost control. Can't even palm the basketball.
But it was still in the palm of his hand. But it was still in the palm of his hand.
If he had dunked on LeBron, it would have been the end of the world for
But what
LeBron.
I'm saying to you is it has nothing to do with the block because the ball was still in the palm of his hands. And when LeBron blocked it, his hand, the palm of his hand was on the ball. So even though he might have not had control, it was still in its proper location when LeBron blocked the shot.
Here's how you
can't take credit away from him for that.
Here's how you can trap Skip on this. If he had finished that dunk over LeBron, what would you have given that on a scale of 1 to 10?
There is no way he could finish it. I watched too much Tiago Splitter. You can't jump. He's no power leaper, no power dunker.
There's always a way out of it.
You know that. Brian, when we quantify on this show, 1 to 10, what would you give it?
I mean,
no, wait, you're doing impress. See, I'm doing degree of difficulty versus Tiago.
So if he said it was a part of the highlight reel of his career, so obviously he's impressed.
I'm going to just, out of fairness, I'm going to take out the fact that it's during a 33-3 run in the NBA Finals and a defining run. I think it was a 6 or 7.
Okay.
Because,
I agree with that.
In terms of difficulty.
Yeah, because, again,
degree of difficulty. Are you factoring in against whom
I think Splitter is 80% of the way home. 80% of the way home, and LeBron comes up and
he lost control of the
ball. He certainly did when LeBron shoved it down his throat.
Skip's not going to win this one. Okay, look, let's move on.
So you say.
You want that these gentlemen disagree with you. Let's talk about LeBron James. We said you've been covering him since he was in high school. So what's the biggest difference, in your opinion, from him compared to last year to where he is right now?
I think if you look at his confidence and the way he was able to handle that game last night, he was having a dog game. Let's just be honest. He was 2 of 12.
Yeah.
He was not active in the game. He didn't even score until the last 20 seconds of the first quarter. He was playing very poorly. And I've seen him in the past, when that happens in the finals, just melt. We saw it 2 years ago. He had an 8-point game in Dallas. I mean, who could ever forget that? He was on his way to having another dog game last night. But he stuck with the game plan. He didn't leave the zone he was in. And he was trusting his teammates. And whether or not that's the way you think he should play or the way you think he should play or anybody, that's the way he's going to play, and he feels a confidence in that now. I think he doubted himself. He would definitely have doubted himself a year or so ago. After getting through those finals last year, I think he plays the game with a completely different level of confidence.
And let me say, before you jump in, Brian wrote a terrific column about all of this that's up right now on .com. I highly recommend it, but I read all the things that you write. Great insight. And you even concluded the column saying, there might have been a point earlier in his career he might not have even attempted the block, thinking that, man, I got to stay out of the way, out of harm's way here. But obviously they're in a 33-5 blitz, so he was completely confident. He's got a ring. He's proven himself.
Well, I told you before. I told you last year. Once you win the championship, that was a huge, huge monkey on his back. Once you overcome that obstacle, then you're free to play. And that's what this is about. Listen, when I speak to champions,
one of the things they all, I mean, if you want to really, really get true emotion, true raw emotion from an athlete, ask them about what life was like when the championship eluded them prior to them capturing it. It's everything. One person brought it up to me years ago, a couple of years ago or so. They were talking about primetime Deion Sanders giving his Hall of Fame speech. And they alluded to him apologizing to his family and all this. And then you realize everybody that gives these speeches always do that. Why? Because there's a tremendous level of sacrifice that's made. You shove everybody aside. You shove everything aside. You internalize. You become incredibly selfish because everything is about chasing the elusive title. You have to get it because to them, it defines you. And I think with LeBron, and you're more qualified than me, Brian, to speak on this, I think when it comes to LeBron, he looks at it and says, you know what? I have to do this. He was getting crucified. And then finally to overcome that, I mean, listen, but he's just playing now.
But justifiably criticized before, and he overcame it.
To some degree, yes, it was justified, particularly when he came up small in the fourth quarters against Dallas. But at the same time, it was a bit excessive because even though he was the chosen one and he was King James, you're 18, 19 years old and things stick. You don't think it's going to stick to the point where the level of criticism elevates to the proportions that it elevated for him. And I think that, once you had the championship for the first time in his career, he could sit there and say, how you like me now? He never could say that before.
He was stressed in that series against Dallas. In between those games, on those practice days, you could tell he wasn't sleeping. You could tell he was stressed out about what was going on around him. When they lost Game 1 in this series, I didn't detect a hint of stress. And I didn't detect a hint of stress on his game last night.
Said he went home and had the best sleep he's had in the playoffs.
I don't know if I believe all that, but he was 2 of 12 last night, and his game did not show stress. It was a bad game. He's got to play better. They're going on the road. 2 of 12. From now on, he's not going to get it done, but he handled it.
I want to throw this analogy out at Brian because I want to see if you agree with me on this or not. This is what I believe. It's just my belief. LeBron James is at a point right now where if he believes all he has to do is play his game. He accepts responsibility and culpability, don't get me wrong. But he believes all he has to do is play his game. If other people don't show up, somebody's going to notice. Whereas in the past, it didn't matter what anybody else didn't do. It was going to all be on his shoulders. He was going to get blamed. But now that he's won a championship and we've seen the complete game that he brings to the table, the way he affects the game in a multitude of ways, all of a sudden he knows that we're going to notice if Dwyane Wade isn't playing well. We're going to notice if Chris Bosh isn't playing well. We're going to notice if all of a sudden Ray Allen goes into a shooting slump. We're going to notice if Mario Chalmers is a bit too passive. We're going to notice if guys are not doing their jobs. Whereas before, I think it was all on him, and that's what he felt, Brian.
I think what's interesting is Greg Popovich, this way this series is setting up, he's maybe trying to use that against LeBron. You look at the way the Spurs game plan's operating, he's double and triple teaming him because he knows that LeBron's not going to try to fight it. He's going to pass out of it. And last night's game was decided by Mike Miller, Mario Chalmers, and Ray Allen.
No question.
And when Greg Popovich got on that plane here last night, it's 1-1. His team got blown out. I think he's saying, you know what? First 2 games, LeBron had 16 shots in the first game, had 17 shots last night. He's averaging 17 points a game. Yeah, he's averaging 13 rebounds and 9 assists, which is incredible. But we had a good chance to win both of these games. They dogged it in the fourth quarter last night. Yeah. I think Greg Popovich his game plan coming in is to use just what you said against him. Greg Popovich has been out on front all year long talking about, look how comfortable LeBron is in his own skin. Look how he doesn't care about what everybody thinks. He's using that in his game plan against him because he's going to say, let LeBron distribute the ball.
The only problem with your analogy is that it don't mean much if Manu Ginobili don't show up.
Completely agree.
Kawhi Leonard showed up, though.
Yeah.
He's done a pretty good job.
You need Manu. You got to have someone other than the starting 5.
Big three.
You got to have someone.
Brian, are you concerned at all about the Spurs losing? Are they in trouble right now?
I mean, I think they're going home for 3, and I completely agree with Stephen A. I think somebody's going to win 2 or 3. Whoever comes back here up 3-2 is going to win the series, I think. We're not going to know which was the swing game. It might be Game 3. It might be Game 5. What I will say about this is the Heat were one going to Dallas 2 years ago. You talk about that 92% stat, and they won Game 3 and still lost the series. So we're not going to know until it's over.
That's true.
But the Heat, it's going to come down to one of these games. Is going to, in my opinion, going to decide the series. So I don't think the Spurs are panicking. But to your point about Ginobili, 3 of their top 6 players were terrible last night. Splitter had 1 rebound. I don't care about the dunk, everything like that.
I said Splitter was the no-show last night.
1 rebound in like 24 minutes. Not acceptable.
Yeah.
Duncan played poorly.
3 of 13 shooting.
Just wasn't involved in the game. Ginobili couldn't even dribble. So I think Popovich's got to worry about getting those guys back. You figure going home you'll play better. But I think Greg Popovich is happy with his game plan.
But
He's
what's
getting
funny,
LeBron pass.
bottom line to this, of the big three versus the big three, only really one of the 6 had a game. LeBron had a LeBron game.
Absolutely.
Right? But no, Wade and Bosh kind of disappeared down the stretch. They were good early.
To tell you where it is now with Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh had a 12-point, 10-rebound game last night. Good game.
I thought he played a good game.
It was the best game he'd played in 3 weeks.
Yeah, but I thought Chris Bosh showed up, and listen, we crucified him over the last couple of games. I'm telling you, he showed up last night. It doesn't matter to me that he scored 12 points. He shot 60% from the field. He was efficient. He was effective. He was confident. It's just that they went on that run, and he wasn't needed. But Chris Bosh showed up last night.
$111 million
He needed to.
12 and 10.
All I'm saying is this: we're gonna call him out. I'm not forget the 12. You got to understand the context of the game. Ray Allen, Mario Chalmers, Mike Miller are balling. You see that? I don't care what. If you are any kind of a player and you see guys flowing like that, you move out the way.
Sure.
You don't mess with that. I mean, people already punch you in the face when you're stupid enough to get in the way of that kind of onslaught. You see Ray Allen, Mike Miller, and Mario Chalmers hitting those points. Move out the way. Don't get in their way. But Chris Bosh was confident. When he was in the game, he was efficient and effective, and more importantly, he didn't shy away. And that's what you need him to do. Sure. And he did it. To me, 12 points. I don't care about that. He earned his money last night.
Well, we're big on predictions on this show. Both Skip and Stephen A. said Spurs will take it in 7. So you want to walk us through the rest of the series?
I picked the Heat in 7 because they have the best player in the game in his prime. And that's what you're looking at when the series is starting.
I understand that.
I admit that the Spurs are trending better and the Heat were trending down. I mean, Dwayne Wade is just not the same player right now. Bosh, not the same player right now. I think it comes back 3-2. I think the series actually ends up getting decided who goes 2-1 in San Antonio. The Heat have the ability to go 2-1 there.
Yes.
The Heat are a team that doesn't lose 2 in a row. So they lose game 3, no matter what the circumstances are, as long as LeBron's upright, I'm picking the Heat to win
Just
game 4.
so you know, I picked Miami. It's the Spurs to split Miami and to win 2 on their home court. I picked the Spurs in 7 because I don't believe they would lose 2 games in a row, game 6 and 7, with a championship on the line. But if they don't win 2 in San Antonio, they're losing the series.
Well, anytime you're having a discussion about the Heat, you have that asterisk out there of LeBron could come out and carry them through.
Yeah.
And that's what Greg Popovich is trying to do. He is double, triple teaming and saying, if Mike Miller's going to beat us, Ray Allen's going to beat us, I'll live with that.
I think you're leaning toward Heat in 6, it sounds like.
I think, no, I'm
well,
saying
that's what that was the case he just made.
Look,
I'm saying I'll stick with Heat in 7, which is what I said beforehand, because LeBron, even though I admit the Spurs, position by position, stat by stat, game plan versus game plan, the Spurs have the edge. But I just think history shows us top player in the game, middle of his prime, he can be a difference maker.
Hold your own, Brian. I appreciate it. Join us anytime. We don't even want to let you go, but we gotta. Because guess what? We got somebody coming up next. He's sitting out there in our news.